Thank you very much, and good afternoon and good morning, colleagues from around the world. And thank you for joining us today. It's a real privilege to be with you. As I'm speaking to you, there's a big thunderstorm that's rolling in over the Highveld. I'm based in Pretoria, and it's really beautiful. And it's the rainy season in South Africa, and as a country, there's a strong belief amongst our cultures that the rain means blessings. So I hope that that's true for us this afternoon. And yeah, so it's really beautiful. And if you hear the thunder outside, it's not a threat, or you can see it as one, but I apologize for the background noises. As Zane said, my name is Juanita Clark, and I founded an industry association approximately 12 years ago. And our core focus at the time was on educating governments on the benefits of fiber optic infrastructure. In the early days of speaking about those things, many people thought that fiber was simply a part of their diet. And today, fiber to the home, or FTTH, as we all know it globally, has become a household name. And it's actually become its own brand. And it is something that, people are actively seeking. But, we can talk about all these wonderful things. And, Sim took my money, after 10 minutes of his speech. And Andre had me convinced really quickly. And, not to, follow the Director General, who always leaves us inspired and feeling warm about our country that we're also passionate about. But, at the end of this, all these conversations are fruitless if we cannot provide the technology backup that is required to run our systems efficiently. And I think the pandemic has taught us one thing, and that's the value of what was until the beginning of 2020 known as the silent economy, and as the silent engine of the economy. Today, there's no doubt that digital connectivity plays an incredibly important role in all of our lives, and it doesn't matter where we are. One of the things that the pandemic has taught us is that we are all heavily reliant on technology. And as Andre showcased in some of the things that he spoke about, tech is just growing immensely. The adoption of technology is growing immensely. As an industry association, we conduct research every year. We look at the market expansion and how markets grow. We track the deployment of fiber optic infrastructure, not just in South Africa. We look at the rest of the continent. And it's important for us to understand these things because it also talks to the digital readiness of the country. And we're very proud of the progress that we have made in South Africa and in the rest of Africa. And there's been significant increase in the adoption of digitalization. So to give you a little bit more detailed information on where we stand as a country, for most of you, you'll know that South Africa is surrounded by the coast, which is one of the greatest privileges of living in South Africa, especially when it's holiday time, and we can decide whether we're going, east, west, south, for a holiday destination. But there's another advantage of this beautiful country that we live in, and that is that we've got an immense amount of opportunity for submarine cables to land, which really helps us when it comes to how we consume and how we transport and export data and how we connect, and our international bandwidth. So many of you will know that South Africa already has a couple of international or submarine cables. We've got the SAT3, WAX, SAFE, TCOM, EASY, ACE, and the METIS cable. And today, actually, there was another announcement by one of the telecom operators to say that they will be landing a brand new cable, a Google cable, which is known as Equiano. And the interesting thing about this cable is that it has more than double the capacity of all the cables that have been landed on our shores previously. So that is really exciting. This cable will come all the way down the west coast, and it will then connect at South Africa. And this is significant because we want to make sure that we have got adequate infrastructure and adequate bandwidth so that we can communicate with our counterparts at any given time. So to look a little bit more at our penetration, I think Sim made reference to the fact, and we will all agree with that, that during the pandemic, the way that we work has changed. And ICT, we will agree, is one of the most dynamic and resilient sectors in the continent. And it not only survived the pandemic, but it's grown exponentially and it's acted as an enabler for many other sectors. So you will all remember in South Africa, particularly on the 27th of March last year, everybody was sent home and people were expected to suddenly work from home. And the resilience in which the sectors just adopted digitalization, and people literally went home and were productive within a couple of days, is still phenomenal. Especially noteworthy in South Africa was the increased levels of infrastructure sharing that took place, which participated and supported network operators in their business models and to make sure that the so-called lights stayed on, so to speak. But operators are moving away from traditional voice and data messaging, and they are also becoming providers of a more digital lifestyle services. They moving into financial services, into insurance, banking, and these are trends that we are seeing globally. In South Africa and in many of the sub-Saharan fiber markets, broadband service offerings is to some extent still a niche service, but we are seeing a greater adoption and mass demand and increase in demand from overall households seeking to connect themselves through fiber optic infrastructure. In South Africa, particularly focused on this country, we've exceeded already 1 million fiber broadband subscribers in early 2021. This is significant. And if you understand the fiber speak, obviously you'll not only look at how many households you've connected, but you also consider the rate of adoption. And we've got more than 50% adoption of fiber to the home services. And this is significant, not only in South Africa, but this is globally a really significant number. There's also been a growing focus by governments and regulators to encourage further infrastructure sharing and remove these traditional barriers that historically slowed down the deployment of high-speed broadband infrastructure. I can comfortably tell you that there are several initiatives by the South African government to further make available policies and regulatory aspects that removes barriers to entry and makes it easier for companies to deploy broadband services, especially with a focus on what we call our township economy. And many of our provincial governments and our local governments are in the process of and have announced strategies to ensure that broadband is deployed into also the lower income areas. Now, we know that globally, this is a concern. Globally, what we call the digital divide, which is really the ability for people in rural areas or in lower income areas, remains a concern, and it is something that governments globally are struggle with. In South Africa, our government recently announced a broadband access fund, which will seek to work with private sector to deploy broadband into lower income areas. This is a significant progress because, to our knowledge, it's one of the first African countries that have gotten to this stage where they've actually acknowledged that there is a need. Now, it's certainly not on the scale of what the US announced last week and how they will be doing this, but in the context of South Africa, it's a really big step, and we're very excited about it. So mobile technology, of course, remains the leading method of connectivity for most of our population and is the most widely adopted, not just in South Africa, but also in sub-Saharan Africa. In 2021, we had approximately 340 million unique mobile internet subscribers. And that becomes even more so when you consider South Africa, where there's 160% mobile penetration in South Africa. And we know that globally, telcos are increasingly moving towards asset-light models, similarly in South Africa. And this may or may not be of interest to you, but it really works to reduce the cost to communicate. And that's why it's so incredibly important that we understand these conversations. And, in the last couple of months, we've seen MTN, move out of or selling off their portfolios of towers, which is a really interesting move. And I think it was announced today or yesterday that IHS was the winning bidder. And now IHS, many of you will know, an American company and one of the biggest tower cos globally that exist. And then, of course, Vodacom also announced that they will be putting their towers into a separate entity. And all of this, we believe, will contribute to lowering the cost of to communicate. So there's also a massive expansion in data centers, which is really important to us. The most recent announcement from American-based Advantage that announced a $1 billion data center, which will be built in Johannesburg. But similarly, we've seen other announcements from Terraco Data Environments that have done, I think it is a 300 million rand, $1 million expansion on their data center. We've seen NTT make an announcement and several other announcements. So as I think Sim alluded to earlier, AWS are very active on the continent. Similarly, Microsoft, some of our bigger companies that operate here, American-based companies, and then of course Oracle also make an announcement that they will be building a data center in Johannesburg in excess of $1 billion US. So really good connectivity, really phenomenal backhaul in place. In South Africa particularly, we've got mass deployment of fiber optic infrastructure that connects all the major towns, 5 and potentially 7 by the end of 2022 cables that would have landed on our coast, backhaul infrastructure in place, and this infrastructure is now have already been carried to over 1 million homes. The ultimate goal of government is to see another 12 million homes connected by high-speed broadband infrastructure. So the current state of connectivity in South Africa really should give you a comforting departure point to understand that, if all the concerns are in place, we've got the ICT infrastructure here, all the best contact center technologies are available right here. The integrators exist for this. And then, of course, the technology and the connectivity on which all of this is built also is in country and is ready to be used as you see fit. So just in closing, you are welcome to reach out to me as well if you've got any additional questions in this regard. But the rain is pouring down outside, and I hope that there wasn't much interference, but we're very grateful and we hope that it breaks the heat a little bit. But at that point, Zane, I'm happy to hand back to you. Thank you, everyone.